An error occurred. Wait a moment and try again.
It's time to talk sports. It's Hacksaw's Headlines, a panorama of the world of sports, stories, comments, and opinions. Now, here's iconic sports talk show host Lee Hacksaw Hamilton and co-host John Riley.
Who wants to talk sports on a Monday? We do. From the Dixie Line Lumber and Home Center studios in San Diego, we welcome you to our Monday bonus podcast of Hacksaw's Headlines. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, along with my co-host, the venerable John Riley, and our in-studio guest, our coach, John Kentera. We welcome you to our Monday podcast, brought to you by Dixie Line Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you in San Diego. You've got projects, they've got materials, you want ideas. Dixie Line can be your best friend. Congratulations to my co-host, John Riley. Today, we are celebrating our 200th podcast together in about a year and a half. We're still on the air, live streaming. B, we've not been fired by anybody because we work for ourselves. And C, we haven't been sued yet, but there's always potential there. John, congratulations. You created this. I always tell people who stop me in the community, if you don't like what I say, blame John Riley because he's the one that came up with the idea to put Hacksaw's Headlines in podcast form. How you doing?
I'm doing good. And it's like we have another blowtorch signal, 77,000 watts
globally
up and down the West Coast. But it's on the internet. And John, it's great to have you here. And, it's building, it's growing, and I'm really excited. So great to be with y'all.
And there are people who do get offended at what we say, but that's okay. You have your opinion. We have our opinion. When you get your own podcast, you can say what you want to say on your own podcast. Coach, grab that mic. Great to have you with us. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you back.
Well, thanks, Lee. Good to be here. Always enjoy the phone call. You and I actually stay in touch quite a bit. We don't see one another as much as we used to in the press box or working side by side on a daily basis, but we certainly still stay in contact on a fairly regular basis.
The game today is Q&A. Everybody knows what I think about everything. You're going to tell them what you think, and we might argue back and forth a little bit. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
John Riley, let's go. First topic on the table. Padres, fight for first place continues. Now, I said 2.5, 3 weeks ago, and Riley will back me up. The next 15 games they play, we'll put them in the pennant race or we'll bury them. And, of course, the 15 are against the Rockies, the Marlins, the Pirates, and they got hot, and they drove a stake into the pennant race. They got within 2 games. Now they've given some ground. Now they're 4.5 back as they go back out on the road against St. Louis. This is a team, I think it's almost a team of destiny. Topic 1, question 1, A.J. Preller. As relentless as he has been getting players, how he's gotten players, what he's paid the players he's acquired, this might be his best work ever as he goes into his 10th year as general manager of the Padres. Give me your thoughts on what Preller was, what Preller does, how he conducts his business, and what Preller's put on the field this season.
Well, I think as far as the way he's conducted his business this year, I think he knew going into this year he had a lot of heat on him. His contract is up after the 2026 season. He needed to win, even though they cut back the payroll. Every move that he has made, I mean, I don't care. You want to talk Dylan Cease, you want to talk trading Soto. All those guys have come back and helped in one way or another.
The bench bunch.
The bench bunch, Solano, David Peralta, a guy that I've always liked. I mean, he was kind of on life support there on a minor league contract with the Cubs, got released. Padres give him an opportunity. He's made the most of it. It's been a really exciting year, and I think this is probably the best he's done. But again, right now it looks like they're headed to the playoffs. But, what are they going to do in the playoffs? But, hey, the big thing, Lee, trading deadline's come and gone, but they get Joe Musgrove back. And now pretty good workout yesterday by Yu Darvish at the ballpark. We'll see what he brings to the table when they activate him.
Next topic. Is there an intangible that we can point to with manager Mike Schilt that has made the team different, made the clubhouse different, make the roster respond to him? Is it what he did in St. Louis, his transfer to San Diego? Your impression of the Padres' first-year manager?
I think he's done a good job. I think sometimes maybe a little bit too brown and gold glasses on. I think he's very thin-skinned. He's had a good run this year, no doubt about it. But there have been some questions, whether you like the questions or not. I think he's a little touchy at times. There are certain things that he said during the year I could see where, St. Louis probably. I can see now, even though I think he's done a really good job, I can see why a baseball town like St. Louis, even though he was winning there, decided to go a different direction. But you know what? The players are playing their tail off for him. They don't give up at bats. They're putting the ball in play. I think he's done a great job. I think the one area where I think sometimes he struggles a little bit is dealing with the pitching staff, and that's a real art. And again, he's getting to know a lot of these guys, but at this point in time, I think he should have a pretty good idea. I do think this Sunday's game when Martin Perez gave up that home run and then walked 3 in a row. I think a lot of managers, Lee, may have let him, being a veteran pitcher, may have tried to see if he could get out of that inning. But Mike Schultz was not only managing that game, he was managing his bullpen, knowing what they're not going to have any days off, but he's also looking at the scoreboard. Arizona had already won. The Dodgers were in a dogfight up there against Tampa, and he made the right move, I think, on Sunday.
Rosters. Who could have seen this? Ted Williams was the original kid in San Diego, what he became at Fenway Park with the Red Sox. This is the kid 2-0. What Jackson Merrill has become to me is absolutely stunning at age 21. Not only handling it, bouncing back from 0 for 20 slumps and not letting him mentally fall apart. This is a special 21-year-old they got in center field, by the way, a new position. I don't think, all the years I've been here, and you've had a few more cups of coffee than I have, I don't think there's been an exciting rookie in this town since maybe Benito Santiago. Thoughts on the center fielder, the kid?
I think every day, Lee, he amazes a little bit more. I mean, just to be able to play Major League center field, let alone doing what he's doing offensively. I mean, I would have been happy if he'd hit 250 and hit, 10 to 12 home runs this year and drove in, 40 or 50 runs would have been a fantastic year. But this kid, he likes the big moment. He knows how to deal with it. I think that the veterans have taken a liking to him. And the thing that I like when he gets interviewed after games, it's not about him. It's about team, and we got to win ball games. And this kid played, Lee, 46 AA games. He never played in AAA. And what he's doing right now is really a miracle. And I'm so happy for him because he seems to be just a great kid, works hard every day, and he's able to turn the page where a lot of young guys, they beat themselves up when they go 0 for 12 or 0 for 16. They have a hard time, looking people in the eye. This guy comes back thinking he's going to go 4 for 4 the next day.
Manny Machado, third baseman. I think the game comes very easy to him. Sometimes it looks like he's loafing, blowing bubble gums, not running out ground balls. He's haunted by what he did in Baltimore. He's probably going to be haunted forever by his statement, "I'm not Johnny Hustle," that he made at the end of his short stay with the Dodgers. But he seems to be a different player and maybe a different person. I don't know if fatherhood's got something to do with that maturity. I don't know whether it's the interaction with the late Peter Seidler's got something to do with. He's different. At least he appears different to me. You tell me what you see.
I see a guy right now that is, he likes to be the alpha. He likes to be the man. And last year, you had Tatis coming back last year. He was playing. You had Juan Soto, who definitely wanted to be the man, who commanded a lot of attention on the field, off the field, in the clubhouse. I'll be honest with you. I think addition by subtraction. I think getting Soto out of that clubhouse probably played a big part in how this thing has gotten turned around. There's no doubt who the leader of this ball club is, and it's Manny Machado. And I think Machado likes it that way. I think he's flourishing. I don't know how bad he was really hurt early in the year. They want to say because he got off to a slow start because of the shoulder. But let's face it, Manny Machado, aside from the 2022 season, has normally gotten off to a slow start, but now he's really heating up. And Lee, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, sometimes the game almost comes too easy. Here's a kid that broke into the big leagues at 19 years of age and has had he's going to the Hall of Fame someday. I don't think anybody will argue that, but I do think the game comes a little bit easy for him at times, and I think a lot of fans they get a little frustrated with him. But I got news for you: watch all the games that I watch night in and night out. There are a lot of guys that don't exactly bust it down the line on routine ground ball outs these days.
Fernando Tatis, I don't know if there's a maturity issue there, or he is who he's always going to be. Is he injury prone on top of everything else?
Well, I'd have to say to this point in time of his career, yes. The thing that's troubling to me, you go back to his rookie year. Remember how he had to miss the last part of his rookie year because he had that stress reaction in his back? Now he's got a stress reaction in his femur. What's going on there? And I also think it's been very, very quiet. I know, he took batting practice the other night out there. He's been doing running and throwing, but there doesn't seem like there's been a whole lot of sense of urgency from Tatis or from the Padres really talking about, what they're going to do with this guy.
Well, the doctors, I think, have put a hold on it. They don't want the stress reaction to come back or grow, because that would then lose him for the rest of the season. Last topic on Padre baseball: clubhouse chemistry. Toxic last year. I've thought long and hard about this. Was it Preller's interference with Melvin? Was it the players tuning out Melvin because they had Preller's backing? Or was it just some bad people in the clubhouse? It sure seems different since there is no Soto, Mr. Me, Myself, and I, and there's no Josh Hader.
I would say all the above. I think anytime the manager gets devalued and the players see that the manager's legs have been cut off, it's hard for the manager to, really demand that respect. And I think those guys were button heads. I was surprised Bob Melvin came back for his second year. I thought even though they got to the NLCS, I had heard there were all kinds of problems and Bob was thinking about not coming back. But I know this because Bob Melvin told me he wanted to come back this year. He wanted to come back, but at the end of the day, AJ didn't want to have him back. And luckily for Bob, he was able to stay in the game because that job with the Giants opened up. But I think all of the above. I mean, Soto drained that clubhouse. Hader was selfish. And to a certain degree, I understand where Hader was coming from, but I don't agree with it. He got his money now and more power to him. But again, I think there were a lot of factors. I think the manager and the general manager button heads that played a part in, but I think Soto was a real problem, more than anybody wanted to admit to.
Okay, we do something special on our podcast. When we are done, we give you, the fans, the opportunity to join us. It's called Fans Forum. Jump into the chat box if you got questions or comments on what I said, what Coach John Kentera said. Fans Forum box is open for you right now. They're stacking up like the planes at Lindbergh Field, getting ready to take off. Join us now if you got comments to what we've talked about with Padre baseball. Okay, so we go from that. Dodger baseball. Why does everybody in LA dislike Dave Roberts across the board, despite all the first place finishes, despite World Series appearances, despite the ring that they have? Why do they dislike Dave Roberts?
They have to be angry at somebody. I mean, I'm convinced that Dave Roberts could go 162-0, win the World Series, and fans would still be pissed because they didn't win ball games by enough of runs. I mean, it's just that way. But you know what? The players love Dave Roberts in that clubhouse. Dodgers are going to be tough because they're getting guys back, and that bullpen's looking a whole lot better. Getting Ryan Brazier back. Blake Treinen's been a little bit up and down, but he's still got really good stuff. Evan Phillips has had a really good month of August, and they're getting some of that starting pitching. Yamamoto's supposed to be coming here before too long. Glasnow's had a little bit of a setback. Not really sure what's going on with him. The Dodgers are going to be awful tough to catch.
I just don't know, though, that you can trust Buehler in postseason. I don't know that you can really trust which Kershaw will show up on Tuesday compared to what he might do on Thursday or on Sunday. And obviously, there is no Dustin May. I mean, I think they've got significant pitching problems. I don't know if you follow the stat. They got 16 pitchers have been on the DL this season. 16. They've used 35 pitchers this season, and it's not even September 1st. They've had 6 major surgeries to their young pitchers that have come out of Oklahoma City. I just don't know who you can trust in postseason. Second topic, I say must-see TV. What Ohtani has done strictly as a designated hitter, home runs, stolen bases, etc. It is weird, though, because he's only hitting about 155 now since the month of June. But when he's at the plate, kind of like Aaron Judge, to me, must-see TV, and he took the personal calamity of the loss of $17 million stolen by his personal aide, Mutsuhara. It has not affected him at all. I mean, his mental makeup, Phil Nevin, when he was managing the Angels, said this is the toughest mental player I've ever seen go through what he went through in terms of preparation, coping with good days, bad days, etc. Ohtani, must-see TV?
Must-see TV, Lee. I've been following Ohtani since he was in Japan. I was working for John Boggs at the time and did a lot of research on Ohtani. Really an amazing human being. I've never seen anything like it. Any athlete I've ever covered, the way this guy goes about his business, the stuff that happened in his personal life, I mean, just total deflection. And he's back at it, swinging the bat well. I agree. He's been a little bit of inconsistent, but I think that's been more of him trying to do a little bit too much with Mookie Betts out. Maybe now that Mookie's back, you may see him, not go up there and flail away. The other thing that's been kind of interesting, he gets really jumpy. When there's runners on base, I mean, he's swinging early in the count. He doesn't really work the pitchers all that much. And I think that's an area where he could probably get a little bit better. But, watching him the other night, I was watching the game when he stole his 40th base and then hit that 40th home run to grand slam to win the ball game. I mean, it's amazing. The guy's a movie. He's a movie every night that he's out on the field.
He plays with such exuberance. And what he did in the All-Star game was, I watched that and I said, this guy just loves to excel. Look at how he reacts when he does special things.
You know what's interesting, Lee? I got a totally different take on him coming back as a pitcher. I think that, Tommy John surgery or whatever he actually had done, that second one, I think he had to be a closer myself. I'd rather see him be a closer if I were the Dodgers than a starting pitcher, because he can affect those games 3 or 4 times a week rather than once a week on the mound.
It affects the games at being the DH every other day, too.
Yeah. I mean, the guy's amazing. Dodgers are very, very tough. But I'll tell you, postseason, I think the Padres can match up with the Dodgers on the mound. Definitely match up on the mound. I mean, Padres get in the playoffs. They could be a really dangerous team with the starting rotation they have in that bullpen.
Okay, you're a Dodger fan. Jump on board. Fans Forum chat box is open. Fill up the slot. Got a question? Got a statement to make? We're here. That comes up right at the end of this podcast. Third topic on the table involves these guys. Nice headline that John Riley put together. Angels baseball. Is the big problem ownership? Is the big problem philosophy? Is the big problem the players they gave money to? Your thoughts on the Halos?
Well, I think Artie Moreno, a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, said he was looking to sell the team, and then he took it off the market. I think he had to put it back on the market. His shelf life is over for me. As a kid growing up here in Southern California, before the Padres came into existence, the Angels were my team. That was the first big league game I ever saw with the Angels. Jim Fregosi, Bobby Knopp, and that whole crew. And to watch that organization just go down the porcelain fixture is really, really sad. I mean, I don't really follow him anymore. I think Ron Washington's done as good a job as he possibly could with what he's got. Guys play hard for him. They just don't have enough of talent. And I think ownership has to take a big chunk of it. I saw Perry Minasian getting a contract extension. Great. But how many general managers and managers have they gone through over the last decade after Mike Scioscia got out of there? I mean, a total absolute disaster up there.
Isn't it sad what's happened to Mike Trout? And it's not that he's a bad dude. No. He's just been a victim of a lot of bad injuries, and he's being robbed of what should be the pinnacle of his career. And yet he wants to stay. He's never asked to be traded.
No, he hasn't. He's been a very loyal soldier up there. But I don't think Mike Trout's one of those guys that likes being in the limelight. I don't think he wanted to go back, close to his hometown in Philadelphia, be in that rat race and out here he can kind of hang out. And, it's really sad. We've all been robbed as baseball fans. We've been robbed of what Trout could have done long-term. And, hopefully he's able to come back next year. But he's missed so much time. It's so hard, Lee, to come back from injury after injury. It wears you down.
We are here talking baseball. You're going to join us on Fans Forum right at the end. Couple of other business notes. X marks the spot. You're on social media. I want you to join Hacksaw's Twitter All-Star team. Just go to X, put in my name, my handle, @Hacksaw1090, hit the follow button. Want you to follow me. You like sports? Check my website every morning. Unbelievable amount of content. I write it all late in the evening. You'll have it first thing in the morning. Also want to remind you, when you go to my website, right there on the homepage is a big orange box, Hacksaw's Insiders Group. Fill it out so you can get all the special information that we funnel to all of our Insiders Group on a week-by-week basis. Want you to share, tell everybody we do Mondays and Thursdays at 1 p.m. Pacific. Want you to subscribe. Every time you subscribe, you'll get the alerts every time we put something up on the YouTube channel. I've tried really hard to stop John Riley from posting things at 3 o'clock in the morning, but hey, you're going to get all the alerts of all the things that we put on our YouTube channel. Give us a thumbs up. Give us a 5-star rating. We could use all the friends that we can get. We go from that. We're going to talk NFL football. Fans Forum box is open. We're 10 days out from the start of the NFL football season. Chargers. They got Jim Harbaugh. They got Justin Herbert. Do they have anybody else, John Kentera?
It'll be an interesting year, I think, if you're a Charger fan, because you really don't know what to expect. I mean, and granted, they've got the Super Bowl champion in their division, the Kansas City Chiefs. I think Denver's going to be a little bit better. Raiders, I don't expect a whole lot out of them. It's going to be interesting to see how the Chargers are able to put their defense together. Can a guy like Joey Bosa finally stay healthy for an entire year? Can Justin Herbert come back from their plantar fascia and stay healthy? That's a painful injury. And, there's a lot of questions there, but they've got a lot of youth. They got a lot of team speed, and we'll see where it goes. But if you're a Charger fan, it's going to be a wild ride, I think, with Jim Harbaugh.
Harbaugh will change the culture, is changing the culture. The new general manager is the one that nobody's paid attention to. Joe Ortiz came from a good set of standards that they operated with a very successful Baltimore Ravens franchise in terms of how to find players, how to grow players, how to change the bottom third of the roster. I like Ortiz. First draft looks pretty good, but the street free agents or role players that they like, he's doing the exact same thing in L.A. that he did with the Baltimore Ravens as the assistant to Ozzie Newsome and then the player personnel director.
Well, if you're following Ozzie Newsome and his blueprint, you're eventually going to have a pretty good football team. This year, don't know. A lot of questions, running game, a lot of inexperience at the wide receiver spot. But one thing you and I both know, covering Jim Harbaugh, whether it was a player or as a coach, he can be very exhausting. And he can wear out a staff, even the equipment managers in the front office. He can wear them all down because he's a full go 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. There's no days off for Jim Harbaugh.
He's unique. It's a passion play with him. It's like a tent revival speech every time he talks to the media. I guess that's okay. I don't know that I'll ever feel any different. I can't forgive Dean Spanos to what he did to this community after 55 years of loyalty. Now, that being said, we had horrid leadership in the mayor's office for a long period of time. But Kevin Faulkner, the city, coupled with the county, coupled with the group that put together a stadium plan to how to finance it, that was right there. And Spanos turned around, never went to the table, negotiated because he wanted to go to L.A. and collect the money. I can never forgive Spanos for what he did to the community. Then it's personal to me, what he did to our radio station and what he did to me. And yet he flourishes up there with this franchise, and San Diego's in his rearview mirror. I know there's counseling, there's medication for this. I want Justin Herbert to go 17-0 because I really respect him and I like him. And I want Dean Spanos to go 0-17 on behalf of our community. And the coach says,
well, I think, Lee, you said a lot of very good things there. There were a lot of people aside from Dean Spanos that should play a part in why they're no longer in San Diego. But ultimately, Dean Spanos is the one that packed them up and moved them to Los Angeles. The thing that I will never quite understand, maybe you can help me with this. Remember, there was a point in time where they wanted Dean Spanos to throw in $600 million to get the project started here. He didn't want to do that. He didn't want to put any of his money in, yet he goes to Los Angeles and has to pay a $650 million relocation fee that I don't think he's even started to pay on yet. So it didn't really make a lot of sense to me. And I realize LA is LA. The market up there, if they ever sold the team, which I don't think he has any plans anytime soon to sell it, would go for more. But I don't know. I just think at the end of the day, a lot of people to blame, but he ultimately is the one that said, hey, we're going to LA, and, more power to him. Good luck. And hopefully someday, I don't know if it'll be in my lifetime, but I'd sure like to get an NFL team back here.
Unfortunately, I don't think it's possible because the land at that site is no longer available at the land at that site because the Aztecs have taken control of the Qualcomm property. The other team, Crosstown. I'm a big Sean McVay fan. He took a team, turned it into a Super Bowl team, got back to the Super Bowl. Then it appeared big rebuild. And all he did the last 2 years when I was projecting he's going to go 4-13 is get him above 500 2 years in a row with back-to-back good drafts. I think he's a really good coach.
Well, I think he's a great coach, Lee. And there was a point in time when they were struggling. I thought he may bail out. You know, he had a lot of offers, you know, to jump into TV, and good-looking guy, likes living in Los Angeles. And I think more than anything else, that's why he's still in L.A. He likes living in L.A. He likes the L.A. lifestyle up there. And they paid great dividends to get to those Super Bowls. I mean, they gave up a lot.
A lot of draft picks.
And he knew, and the front office knew. They knew they were going to go through some tough times. And, you know, I don't know how good they're going to be this year, but I know this. They're not going to be out coached. They may be out player-wise on both sides of the ball and special teams, but guy's a really good football coach. He's one of the best coaches in the league.
Life after Aaron Donald. I think that's going to really be hard. Now, they've drafted well. They've had 2 good drafts in a row, and those kids are all playing and, for the most part, all contributing. But Aaron Donald woke up one day and said, I don't need this money anymore, and I want to get on with my life after a grind of a career. But what a career he had.
Had a great career, and I know he was up at Rams camp last week, and I think the defensive coordinator was kind of, hey, you got anything left in the tank? But, you know, I think Aaron Donald, you know, he's a sports guy. He likes going to Laker games. He likes, you know, going to different sporting events and being a part of that. And, you know, what he did, I mean, he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. But think about it, Lee. That guy was getting double and triple team for a number of years.
And we're still in the backfield.
But it does take its toll on your body.
No doubt about it. And the final football question as it relates to that city, that market, those teams. Who do you think's winning the fight for LA? Rams or Chargers?
Oh, I think right now the Rams. I think a big reason why Jim Harbaugh is the head coach of the Chargers is I think Roger Goodell told Dean Spanos, your team's not relevant. You guys got to start winning and put people in the seats that are wearing Charger gear rather than everybody else's gear. And I think that's a big reason Jim Harbaugh came in and got the salary he got. Roger Goodell and the other own, they want LA to have 2 relevant football teams.
I concur. And this host said that back in January, right after Harbaugh got signed, because that's what I was told happened. Okay, you're a Rams, you're a Chargers fan, you're an NFL fan. Jump on board, want to hear what you got to say. Fans Forum chat box is open for you. Last football topic on the table as it relates to the NFL, AFC West, what to expect. They got Reed, they got brilliance, they got Mahomes, they got talent, they got a pretty good general manager, Brett Veach. I don't think this thing is ending anytime soon in Kansas City.
No, as long as Andy Reid's there, they're going to always be tough. Andy Reid coaches exceptionally well. Not only that, players like playing for him. And you got Mahomes. I think the wide receiving core a year ago, I think wasn't all that great. I think this year it's going to be pretty good. Kelsey, you know, we'll see. Everybody said he had a bad year last year. You look at his stat, they weren't all that bad.
And he got Travis Swift out of it too. Or Taylor Swift.
Yeah, and again, you know, where is his head from one day to the next? You know, there's a lot of paparazzi and all that. But, you know, the defense last year for me with Kansas City was a lot better than I anticipated. They may take a little bit of a step back, but they're still ought to be pretty good on defense.
Sean Payton's accomplished a lot. Some of his best work was New Orleans, Drew Brees. He looks like he's accomplishing an awful lot with the rookie quarterback from Oregon, Bo Nix. They're finally healthy at running back. They got 4 healthy receivers for the first time in a group of years. I bet Denver is going to be better than anybody expects. And what do you think about Bo Nix and Sean Payton's linkage?
You know, Bo Nix, I got some reservations about him. I know Jared Stidham is there. Bo Nix is an older rookie quarterback. That may help him a little bit. We'll see. But, you know, the one thing about Sean Payton, and I think you bring up a good point, he does a really good job of working with quarterbacks. And Bo Nix has come in, worked really hard. You know, of the quarterbacks that came out last year, he wasn't like one of my top 2 or 3 quarterbacks, but he's had a really nice preseason. But as you know, from all the years you're around the NFL, once a week 1 comes, they start seeing things more than just a vanilla defense.
Concur. Raiders. I would have never thought the ex-general manager of the Chargers, Tom Telesco, would show up wearing silver and black, or as I refer to it as silver and bleak. And it's his team. Now, he's got a volatile, loud coach in Antonio Pierce, but it's Telesco's roster to select. I don't know that they have the right quarterback in Garrett Minshew. They lost the top running back, Josh Jacobs, who went to Green Bay, got great skill, did make a great acquisition in the Miami defensive tackle, Christian Wilkins. Now, Max Crosby's got somebody alongside of him. I think there may be another Telesco draft away from adding a complete group. You shocked the ex-Charger guy would put on Raider colors, and what do you think the Raiders are going to be like?
No, I'm not shocked. Another opportunity. It's kind of funny. After Tom got let go by the Chargers, I saw him at the Holiday Bowl, and we've all. It seems like every year at the Holiday Bowl, we get into this long conversation. And he, first of all, personally, I really like Tom Telesco. I think he did a good job as far as getting players into the Chargers. Now, what the Chargers did hiring coaches, and I think that probably was above his pay grade, to be honest with you. They always want the cheap route. I'd love to see him work with Jim Harbaugh and see what he could have done, but it didn't work out that way. I think Telesco's a really good personnel guy. I'm not sure Antonio Pierce is a long-term guy over there. I mean, he and along with Herm Edwards are a big reason why Arizona State got in all the trouble they were, but that's college football. Antonio Pierce came in last year, got everybody rallied, but now let's see how he's able to get through a 17-game schedule. And again, I think Telesco will do a good job. It'll probably take him another year. I don't see Antonio Pierce being a Tom Telesco type of guy, to be honest with you.
Concur. No NFL season starts this way. No Bill Belichick, no Pete Carroll. I'm surprised they're not coaching anywhere. The coach?
Yeah, I'm kind of disappointed. I like both of those guys. Pete Carroll now is going to do a little teaching up there at USC. I thought he'd probably get a job. I certainly thought Belichick would be back in the game at some point in time. But you know what? You got two veteran guys out there, both in their 70s, but both guys that want to still coach. So we'll see.
It is so interesting to me that Belichick will sit this year and do whatever Belichick does. And right there in his backyard will likely be openings, New York Giants, New York Jets, and maybe even the Philadelphia Eagles, and he's a Northeast guy. I would not be shocked to see him wind up at one of those locales.
Well, heck, Lee, if I was in my 70s and I had a girlfriend in my mid-20s, I may not want to coach right now either.
So we get to halftime. You got comments, you got questions. Fan forum chat box is open. This podcast is brought to you by Dixie Line Lumber and Home Centers. 9 locations to serve you in San Diego. John Riley introduced me to Dixie Line. You ought to see John's man cave. There's so much Dixie Line stuff in there. You should see my windows and doors. I got my stuff at Dixie Line. John, what do you like about them?
Good guys, been in San Diego for over 100 years. And if you're a contractor, homeowner, they'll help you out. And one of the great things they have is they have a drive-through lumberyard. So you can just bring your truck in, they'll load you up. You don't have to schlep like a cart into a big box store. They'll load you up. You'll be on the road, and they make it easy for you, especially for the contractor.
These are the people we recommend. If you've got projects, they've got materials. If you want ideas, use them as your consultant. Dixie Line Lumber and Home Centers.
Now the summer came, we can go everywhere. So let's take it to the beach. Girl, it's just you and me. Now the summer came, so we can go everywhere. Let's take it to the beach. Girl, it's just you and me. Now when the summer's here, maybe we can disappear.
Go to the second half of our Monday bonus podcast. Couple of reminders, business notes. X marks the spot. Looking for you to join my Twitter All-Star team. Just go on X social media, hit my handle at Hacksaw1090, hit the follow button. Want you to join me so you'll see all the things that I post on Twitter. We want you to read my website every morning. It's written, it's there. You give me 5 minutes, you'll know everything there is in the world of sports. Just go to LeeHacksawHamilton.com. And also right there on the homepage, there's a big orange box. Fill that box out with your information. Become part of Hacksaw's Insiders Group. We want you to share. Tell everybody what we do on Mondays and Thursdays at 1 p.m. Pacific. We want you to subscribe. Therefore, you will get all the alerts every time we put something up. And we put a lot of stuff up on our YouTube channel during the course of the week and the weekends. Give us a thumbs up. Give us a 5-star rating. That'll help us a lot with John's algorithms, I believe is what he says. So
Algorithms.
I was close. Hey, I cut class the day they taught that stuff. Everyone drinking uptown. But listen, join us. Hope you enjoy our Monday bonus podcast. We go on. College football. Big debut this weekend. San Diego State Aztecs. They open this week. We got that to talk about. We got the Pac-12 to talk about. And then we got the way the NCAA is operating. I like Sean Lewis. Sean Lewis's resume. John Kentera speaks for himself. What really disappoints me and bothers me is they lost so many players in the transfer portal because everybody was tampering with the Aztecs. They got a lot of players, so it's a brand new team, new coach. Obviously, it's a new playbook. And the other thing that really bothers me, where the hell are all the displaced Charger fans? Nobody who is a Charger fans put their arms around San Diego State. And under Rocky Long, Brady Hoke, for the preponderance of years, has been a pretty good product. I'm really disappointed. The no-shows, the empty seats, Snapdragon Stadium, and the declining season ticket signings. Just don't understand football fan in San Diego. Coach, the floor is yours.
Well, first of all, regarding the tickets situation, Lee, I think you go back 2 years ago, they badly overpriced those tickets right from the get-go. It was a complete money grab, okay? No question about it. They've dropped it. Season tickets and regular season game ticket significantly. Hopefully that's going to bring people back. Hopefully Sean Lewis bringing this fast-paced offense in here, that'll get San Diego fired up. You got to remember, San Diego football was bred on Sid Gilman and Don Coryell back in the 60s, okay? And that's what a lot of people grew up with. And San Diego State hasn't thrown the ball all that well or all that often in the last decade plus, okay? I think a lot of people are going to be willing to come out and sample this product. I like Snapdragon Stadium. I'll be honest, I'm very excited about the game on Saturday. I'm planning on being in the press box and enjoying it. I have no idea what I'm going to be watching against Texas A&M Commerce, okay? Who knows? I mean, you got a freshman quarterback, Danny O'Neal. You have no idea. Nobody knows how this team is going to perform. And you talked about the transfer portal. Yeah, they lost a lot of players, but they brought in 48 new bodies. We'll see of those bodies. They got to be a little bit better at the wide receiver. They had like 2 or 3 pretty decent receivers last year, but they couldn't get them the ball. I think they'll be a little bit deeper there. I think the offensive line is probably a definite work in progress, even though they got 3 of their 5 starters back. But defense, I don't know if they're going to be able to stop anybody on defense. We'll have to wait and see on that.
I don't know if anybody's going to be able to defend what they run, because what they run is unbelievably different. You can't put a defensive package in and cope with what they run. If you go back and if you Google and you saw what he did the first half of the season at Colorado with Shedeur Sanders and how fast tempo and how good their athletes were getting the ball downfield, you go back and look at what he did with Kent State, and Kent State was face down on the gutter when he got there. And within 2 years, they were averaging 600 yards a game moving it. What he did at Bowling Green, what he did at Syracuse. And I think these defensive coordinators in the Mountain West Conference are going to have a heart attack trying to figure out how to slow this thing down. And I think they're just willing to outgun everybody.
Well, that very well be the case. I think fans in San Diego, they'll love it. If it's 48-47 and the Aztecs win and a game-winning field goal at the gun, they'd love that. But again, they were picked to finish 8th in the Mountain West Conference. We have no idea how good they're going to be. Are they going to be a 500 team, or are they going to be another 4-8 team, or an 8-4 team, or a 9-3 team? We have no idea right now. And you know what? The coaching staff doesn't either.
I concur. The death of the Pac-12. I'm so offended at what USC and UCLA did to a conference that had been here since 1915. And when they left, then so many mistakes made by the presidents of the university, who they hired to be the commissioner, what he was supposed to do didn't get done. Then Oregon and Washington had to leave because they were facing a loss of enormous amounts of TV money. Then Cal and Stanford made what I thought was unbelievably stupid decision to go to the Atlantic Coast Conference. How's that fit? And you got the 4 corner schools wound up going to the Big 12. I mean, we have no more Pac-12. Is SC and UCLA the enemy for the death of what was a proud conference?
Well, I think Larry Scott, the commissioner at that point in time, who turned it over to Kalivlikov, I think Larry Scott let this conference get away. You know, he was making big money, really didn't do anything significantly. You know what? USC is a private school. They can do what they want. I talked to a board member that was on the committee to allow UCLA, and the person called me and asked me my opinion of what I thought before the vote. And I go, let me ask you this. Aside from money, why would UCLA want to go to the Big Ten? They go, strictly money. And it was all about money. They sacrificed not only their football and basketball programs, they really wrecked it for a lot of kids in other sports as well. I mean, this is mind blowing. It'll be interesting to see how long this thing actually lasts. I could see this thing blowing up, after 4 or 5 years, and I could see the Pac-12 getting back together again. Maybe not all of them, but a portion of them. This is going to be awful exhausting. The travel, the missing of school for the non-revenue type sports. I mean, basketball, I don't think Mick Cronin's happy at all about what's going on basketball-wise. And football-wise, you're going to have a few longer trips, but you go out on the road in football anyways. But that's still going back to the Midwest, and that's going to be awful tough and taxing. It's going to wear your team down as the season goes on.
UCLA, 22,000 miles for 6 road games. Yeah. USC, 21,000 for 6 road games. And I know you're excited. You're going to definitely get on a plane and follow the volleyball team when they go play Rutgers in Piscataway, New Jersey.
Oh, absolutely. And,
Jeez.
Even then, think about this. And I haven't looked at UCLA and USC schedule all that close yet. But, do I really want to watch USC play Indiana or UCLA play Minnesota? Seriously. It's really wrecked college football for me.
Speaking of being wrecked, NIL, transfer portal. Turn your stomach upside down. The NCAA's got to get control out of this. I think they will within a year and a half with an antitrust exemption from Congress. But this thing is so out of control. It's why it's driven the Nick Sabans and the top 4 veteran coaches in the Mountain West Conference away from the game.
Lee, the transfer portal's killing athletes all over because the kids that go into the transfer portal, not all of them are getting picked up. And that's their choice, okay? You got to learn to fight for, a position. Just because you're not number 1 on the depth chart doesn't mean you can't work your tail off and jump over that guy, or if injury comes up and you jump back in there and get your opportunity. But what's really happening, and people have not talked about this, in all the different sports, not just football and basketball, it's affecting all the sports, because what's happening, coaches now are recruiting the transfer portal and they're not recruiting high school athletes. And that's going to be a real problem.
I think it's all going to change, I bet, within a year. The NCAA is going to have to take this back under control. We'll be given it under control under an antitrust exemption. Hey, you're into college athletics? Feel free. Jump on board. Fans Forum is open for you to join us now in the chat box. You can ask me, ask him, or tell both of us off what you think about the status of college football. A couple of other brief topics on the table. Let's talk hoops. They got LeBron. They got AD. Lakers, do we really know how good they are? Because they've gone through 33 veteran free agents in the last 4 years, try to put the right people around AD and around King James, and they haven't been able to do it. And Rob Pelinka still has his job. Reaction to what Laker basketball has become. Now we sit here, and we're all excited with the opening Lakers camp, and we might be the 8th or 9th seed in the play-in tournament. My God.
Well, Lee, I'm a big Lakers fan. I've been a Lakers fan since the mid-'60s as a little boy.
Honk.
Yeah, Elgin Baylor, my favorite player of all time there with the Lakers. And it's been a frustrating run the last several years. And bringing in J.J. Redick, I don't know. I know they've surrounded him with a lot of, veteran coaches, yep, and that's good. But at the end of the day, he is the guy. And, LeBron's still an amazing athlete, whether you like him or not, or like his politics or you don't. The guy's an amazing athlete. Anthony Davis played really well last year and really, for the most part, stayed as healthy as he's ever been in his NBA career. But they've got to surround him with more and more talent, and they got to be able to shoot the ball from the perimeter a little bit better. Defense, they were okay, but their long-range shooting, they need more than just LeBron James casting off from behind the arc.
On we go to the other team in town, the LA Clippers. I like the owner. I think Steve Ballmer's a very credible person. The fact he's built the Intuit Dome right next to the old Great Western Forum is fabulous. But the problem is the franchise is cursed. They tried so hard when Ballmer first got there as the owner. The Chris Paul, Blake Griffin era fell apart because of age and injury. They've tried to reinvent this thing. It's fallen apart now. Kawhi Leonard's got 200,000 miles on his wheels. They got James Harden, who is not the player he used to be. They got rid of Russell Westbrook. They gave up on Paul George, or Paul George actually gave up on them. And they got salary cap problems for the next group of years. Clippers are just cursed. They just can't turn the corner, even though that owner has made every good faith effort to turn the corner.
Well, I agree. I think the owner is fantastic. I mean, he's just a very happy fan. I mean, he goes to all the games, sits there. He's so excited. Got their new arena they're opening up. He's got to be excited about that. I don't know where the Clippers are going to go. They've kind of lost their window of opportunity, I think, more than anything else. But I will tell you, Lee, one thing I am excited about basketball season is that Clippers G League team is coming to Oceanside to that new Front Wave Arena. I'm looking forward to going up and watching some games.
Okay, we got basketball to talk about. Fans Forum chat box is open. If there's anybody out there, it's a Laker fan, Clipper fan, give us a ring. Let us know what you think. A couple other real brief topics on the table. Soccer, San Diego, great soccer following. And by market, Tijuana, San Diego, Mexico, Southern California. So we got MLS coming a year from now. Got the San Diego Wave that was welcomed with open arms, though they've faltered a lot recently. You still have the great champion San Diego Soccer's indoor game, but that seems to have fallen off the radar, sadly, although they're moving to their own indoor facility up in the North County. John, you're a soccer fan, having worked a little bit with the indoor team. Your reaction, MLS women's program, going to work in San Diego to the point it's a raging success, or was that just a snap reaction thing that said, hey, that's pretty cool, and what else am I new?
Well, I'm looking forward to the MLS franchise. Of course, they'll be starting in 2025, and they'll have the MLS supplemental draft, and they're gonna put together a good team. We'll wait and see who ends up being the coach. There's talk that Bob Bradley would be the coach, but that hasn't been official. We'll have to wait and see. But I am excited about that. It's long overdue, quite frankly, for this market. And the San Diego Wave FC, they're going through a tough time right now. I mean, they decided to let Casey Stoney go after giving her a contract extension just a few months prior to that. They weren't scoring goals. They brought in Paul Buckle briefly until the Olympic break was over, and now Landon Donovan. They won that one tournament game, and then they got beat over the weekend 2-1. They've got a lot of work to do, and I don't know if Landon Donovan could be the coach long term with the Wave FC or not. We'll have to wait and see kind of how they finish up and if that's what he wants to do, because he does have a lot of opportunities. And as far as San Diego Soccer's, I think, having been the vice president of operations, general manager for 6 years to that organization, we had great success. But their crowds have fallen off. They haven't done the things, Lee, that
haven't marketed it.
Well, they haven't done the things that I was willing to do when I was there, and that thing has really dropped off. We were getting 4,000, 4,500 on good nights and 3,000 on bad nights. They're barely some nights getting 1,500, let alone 1,000. And I think getting to this new arena, it will save them a lot of money, because it wasn't cheap playing at Pechanga Arena. I can tell you that. I'm excited. It's a good product. Indoor soccer is a lot of fun, especially if you're up there close. And not only that, the guys that play it, they're playing because they love. They're not making big money, but they're good about signing autographs, taking pictures with a kid. It really is a family-friendly event, and I think having their own building is just going to add to the lore of the San Diego Sockers.
Final topic on the table: the war, the Civil War, PGA, LIV. Part of me is aghast that all these marquee players would take blood money from Saudi Arabia to jump to the LIV. The ones that left behind, there's been another wave of young guys that have grown, but they're not to replace the Koepkas and the Dustin Johnsons and the DeChambeaus and the great veteran that was Mickelson, who left. The TV ratings are on the floor. PGA has lost like 30% of its TV ratings for all their events. LIV, nobody watches.
Right.
I told John Riley last weekend, their final round of Greenbrier, the Star Tournament here in West Virginia, LIV had 165,000 viewers. They were outdrawn by pickleball in the Little League World Series. They're not on anybody's radar. And now there's these merger talks that are going on, and they've talked for 2 years, and they can't get a deal done. I've been told that the veterans, the Xander Schauffele's and the Scotty Schefflers of the world, and then to a degree, I think Rory McIlroy, they want this thing solved. They want a merger, but they're not going to let those guys who got all that guaranteed money and violated their tour cards, they're not going to let them come back without some form of entrance fee to pay your way back in or a penalty. So, John, you and I have walked the fairways at Torrey Pines, and we love that tournament. It's got great history and legacy. but your perception of where the PGA is and how do you solve this LIV war?
Well, we're talking about Dean Spanos ultimately, taking the Chargers up to LA. I think the PGA played a part in it. I mean, I realize the LIV Golf Tour gave a ton of money, and there are a bunch of guys who were willing to take that easy payout to go, get guaranteed money without having to win a tournament. But I think there were a lot of things that led to that. I think there was a lot of frustration about maybe the way PGA was being run. But now, I mean, neither side is winning.
No.
Neither side is winning. And I'll be honest with you, Lee, I watch golf very little now. Because I don't know from one weekend to the next who's playing in what tournament, and it's just not as fun as enjoyable. You don't have those great matchups coming down the 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th hole on Sunday to where you want to sit on your rear end and watch golf. And I think, people that like golf, I think they want to go out and play golf rather than watch golf, because I think they're all frustrated with what's going on right now. I think there probably has to be a penalty. But again, at the end of the day, those guys are all independent contractors the way I see it. So I don't know. There might be a meeting of the minds and figure it out. But I don't think you're going to solve it. If those guys come back, there's going to be a certain percentage of the guys on the PGA Tour that are going to be angry.
I think so, very much so. All right, those are topics on the table. We've told you what we think. We want you now to join us in the chat box, because John Riley's favorite segment is coming up next. It's called Fans Forum. A reminder, this podcast brought to you by Dixie Line Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you in San Diego, and the new one that's opening up in Orange County. Fix it, build it, you will enjoy it for 2024 at Dixie Line Lumber. John, just briefly explain to everybody that's with us on the live stream how they can jump in at the last minute here and join us on Fans Forum.
Yeah, if you got a question for Coach or for Hacksaw, just type it in the live chat on Facebook, X, or YouTube. We'll get you involved. There's so much love right now in the chat box to see the two of you guys together, and we're gonna go and break it all down.
As I wrote on X early this morning, Sports Talk Radio on live stream, the way it should be bleeping done. That's what we do here.
Well, we try, Lee, more than anything else, we try to get good information out to the people. That's one thing we've always tried to do.
Okay, here we go. Here comes Fans Forum, John. Ready, set, go.
Okay, let's go here to Greg to kick us off. He goes, Lee, I'm surprised that any of the NFL's struggling franchises are not considering relocating to San Diego. Any thoughts on expansion or another team coming to San Diego? Thanks for a great show.
Thank you, Greg. Plain and simple, there's no place to play. That's the biggest issue. We have no plot of land to build a new stadium, and who would pay for the new stadium? The formula that could have kept the Chargers here was city county contribution of like $375 million apiece, Spanos contribution of like $360 million, the NFL G3 fund contribution, which was in excess of $350 million. That could have been the $1.2 billion. And Spanos never went to the table because he always wanted to go to the city of Los Angeles. Now that land is gone. The stadium is gone. Snapdragon Stadium is not an NFL-ready stadium by any stretch of the imagination. And to build a new stadium, you have to find land, and then you have to pay for that. And there's nobody to relocate. Jacksonville is got this extension for massive renovation. Buffalo is building a brand new stadium across the street in Erie County in upstate New York. There are no franchises to be had. And I don't see the NFL expanding, and the expansion price, John Kentera, would be unbelievably high on top of what you have to spend to build a stadium. So I don't see it happening in the next 5 years, 10 years.
Lee, it's the same old theory. Same thing with the land down in Midway, okay? You're not going to get an NBA or NHL team without an arena, okay? An arena is not going to be built unless you're guaranteed an NHL or NBA team. It's the same thing with football. They're not going to come unless there's a stadium, and the city's not going to be able to get anybody until they build the stadium. It's that simple, and that's where we're at right now, unfortunately.
Greg, sorry for the bad news, but you asked. We just gave you the answer. Next question, John Riley.
All right, next question. Let's go here to Chris. He goes, saw Coach and John, everyone into the pattern. Coach, I remember calling into your show at 11 o'clock as a teenager, and I'm 48. Pete Carroll back at SC. My question is not if he will coach again, but why the hell are you, Lee, not teaching a motivational sports class, damn it?
Well, we should get somebody from San Diego State to invite us in as guest lecturers. I'm sure we could tell the students out there the prospects of working in the industry and what we've experienced. But hey, I think Coach and I both had a tremendous run. I think we both kind of privately wish we were still having the ability to do it, but you need a station, you need good ownership, and I don't see that out there, and I don't like the whole landscape. But that's another topic. John's agreed to come back. We're going to do a thing on the history of sports talk radio, but I think we like interacting with each other. You know, there's an awful lot of verbal gunfire. This is an example of what used to happen in our office, or what would happen
in the hallways.
In the hallways, yeah.
In between commercial breaks.
Yeah.
Hey, you know, Lee, two things that I would tell any young broadcaster. You better be willing to work nights and weekends.
And you better be willing to work in Pocatello, Idaho, or Las Cruces, New Mexico.
Without a doubt. And I was lucky. I was able to start in San Diego and stay my entire career in San Diego. But really, I think what you got to sacrifice, you're out at night all the time, you know, doing talk shows or calling ball games, and you got to be willing to work weekends. If you're not willing to do those two things, probably need to look into another industry.
Yeah, but everybody that's in it wants to do it, and that's why you do it. I started in small market Appalachia, and I did high school football, and we made it a big thing on radio, and high school basketball, and we did high school baseball on AM radio and Summer League American Legion baseball. I was doing games all the time, but that's where I wanted to go, where I wanted to be. So I've still got all the friends that I made in Logan, Ohio, in Appalachia, that are still there at the same station working, and the guys I hired are the ones that wound up buying the radio station and owned it. Next question, John Riley.
Okay, we're going to intersperse some of the love in between the questions. So here's a couple of them, and it's from Casey. Great to see Coach John Kentera on here with Hacksaw, and then Drew says legends, Hacksaw and Coach, and there's a bunch more. We're going to get them all in, but let's go back to Casey's question. NL West race is going to be exciting run to the end, and I think the Dodgers need to stick with Kopech as the closer the rest of the way. What do you guys think?
Well, I maintain that, and they moved Kopech to closer and got 2 saves in 3 days. They're going to have to limit his ops because he throws 100 miles an hour, and I don't think on back-to-back days you want him throwing 45 pitches at 100 miles an hour. My biggest concern, they're going to hit, and they just may have to slug their way through this playoff series. I just don't know if you can trust this starting rotation, especially in postseason play, because you're not going to be playing the White Sox or some of these other substandard teams, Kentera, in postseason play. So who do the Dodgers trust? Glass now doesn't look like he's 100%. There's a wear and tear factor and an elbow history with him. Yamamoto has yet to throw a rehab game, and he's been out an extended period of time. He'd probably be on an innings limit. As much as I respect Kershaw, he's just not the same. You never know from start to start what you're going to get. And I don't know that I can send Buehler out there. Hart is willing. His body is not. I mean, to me, they've got a lot of issues in that rotation.
Well, right now, Gavin Stone, the young guy, is pitching really, really well. And he'd be a guy that'd be one of the first 3 starters in the postseason. They're hoping Glasnow will come back. They're hoping Yamamoto will come back. Kershaw, we know his history in postseason play. They just wait to hit that fastball, and they look for that ball inside when he's pitching, and they go to it. It'll be interesting if he changes how he goes about pitching in the postseason. If they look at his numbers and look at how he attacks hitters in the postseason, they may want to rearrange his game plan. As far as the Dodgers and Kopech's amazing. He finally gave up a run, actually, the other night, but he's been amazing. I mentioned earlier they got Ryan Brazier back. Phillips looks like he's back on track. He gave up that home run the other night, but that was the first run he'd given up in the month of August. And Vesia, the kid from San Diego, has pitched really well. So their bullpen has been pretty good. But again, you got to get through the first 4 or 5 innings in the postseason, and we'll have to wait and see. Postseason is a lot different than it is during the regular season, that's for sure.
Yeah, and there's no 31-100 White Sox teams in the first wild card round that you're going to face. We move on. Next question here.
Okay, there's a bunch of love here. This is from Carl. Says, wow, 2 legends together. John says, welcome, Coach. We need to make your presence a habit. Let's go here to Callan. He says, always a treat when Saw and Coach get together for a show. Great to see you both. Gary says, such a treat because Coach would fill in for Saw back in the day. Great to hear you guys bounce topics off each other. I feel like I'm backing my hot car on the 5805 merch parking lot at 4 o'clock over here. Great show.
Thank you for the kind compliments. And I think we're cut from the same cloth. We believe in the same thing. We like working together. We would argue with each other in the hallway sometimes, and obviously in staff meetings. I never went to staff meetings. I don't read bloody memos. I don't care what management thinks. But anyhow, we had a good time. So
hey, I got to say something about that, about filling in for you. When I first started, I started on the high school show in 1990 on Saturday mornings, and it became really popular. We moved it to Friday nights in 91. And then I started doing fill-in shows, mostly for Steve and Chet. And, I was doing Aztec basketball and doing more and more. And as I was gaining knowledge and experience, every once in a while, I'd fill in for Lee. And then when Lee would go on a vacation, I'd get an opportunity to fill in for an entire week. And Lee, I never told you this. I'll tell it to you right now. It was always a great honor because I knew all of Southern California was listening, and it really enhanced my reputation as a talk show host, being able to, be the guy filling in for you. And it was, to this day, I'm very honored because I took a lot of pride. That drive time show in those days on 690, I took a lot of pride in knowing what you'd done and, tried to live up to what you'd expect out of it. And management got to the point where I was the only guy that got to fill in for you. And that's a feather in my cap to this day.
Thank you. I think the most unique thing, the first time I met Peter Seidler, and of course he had come from the Dodger hierarchy, the Dodger family, and I had never met him. And at the introductory press conference where he was announced to be the majority owner coming in, with Ron Fowler, he came up to me at the end of the press conference, said, "Hacksaw." He shook my hand. He said, "I listened to you all the time when I was in Los Angeles." He said, "I couldn't wait to get out of the office to make sure that I was on the 405 at 4 p.m. in gridlock so I could hear the best 15 minutes of radio." That was absolutely funny and stunning. And then he said, when you went to Sirius XM, after I had been bought out twice by 690 and then 1090, I went to Sirius XM and I did 3 years of weekend shows on the Home Plate Baseball channel. He said, "I'd be on the freeway and I'd be listening to the Home Plate channel because I want to hear what you had to say nationally." He said, "You sure did incite Yankee and Met fans and Dodger fans and Giant fans a lot." So that was so cool to see somebody of this magnitude say, "Hey, we're listening to this loudmouth out in San Diego do sports talk radio."
Well, 690 was a legendary station, Lee, and there'll never be anything like that on the West Coast again. It was a unique cast of characters. I mean, all of us guys on that station were everybody's a little bit different, which made it good. We didn't always agree with one another. Like, we used to get in some pretty interesting arguments in the hallway.
We're going to talk about that. We're going to do a special show just on the history of sports talk radio. So save the good stories for that special show. Okay, John, next topic on the table here.
Let's move on. And there's still so much love here, but let's go here to Tim. And he says, "Lee, Coach John, if Tatis and Darvish come back, can this Padre team really do some damage?"
Oh, I totally think so. I think there's an intangible, and we haven't talked about it, John. There's an intangible of why the Padres have 33 come from behind wins and 8 or 9 walk-off wins. They, as a batting order, don't strike out. They always put the ball in play, whether that's Luis Arise swinging at everything in this area code, whether it's a strike or not, and getting base hits, or the kid 2, Jackson Merrill, with a critical long ball, what Machado can do when he gets hot, what Profar's done in a career season. They don't strike out. They don't kill rallies. They always put the ball in play, and all kinds of weird things can happen when the ball is put in play. I think that's an intangible that nobody pays attention to. I know you're a stat junkie and a stat geek and OPS and all that razzmatazz. But so you got that, and obviously you got, if this starting staff can be frontline healthy, man, they got four or five real trustworthy starters, and there's 7 deep in the bullpen that I will trust for the most part as long as they're not overused. But I think the lack of strikeouts to me is a big, big intangible.
Well, I think you got to give Victor Rodriguez, the hitting coach, a lot of credit. He got these guys to buy into that. Lee, when I was coaching college baseball and high school baseball, there's nothing that upset me more than strikeouts. As a player growing up, back in the 60s and 70s, when you struck out, it was an embarrassment when you had to walk back to that dugout. But now baseball's allowed the strikeout to be a big part of the game. Well, the Padres have eliminated that this year. I mean, they're the least team that strikes out the least in baseball right now. They put the ball in play. When the ball's put in play, yeah, you may hit into a few more double plays because you're putting the ball in play. But you know what? I'll take my chances on that. But, to get into the question regarding Darvish and Tatis, I think this team, if they get them back and they're who they're supposed to be, great. That's a big a shot in the arm. But at the end of the day, whether or not those two guys come back and are effective or not, this team is really pretty good, and they've got a good chemistry. Yeah, you'd like to have Tatis probably out there in right field, covers more ground than David Peralta, and going to be probably a little bit more power coming from his bat. And Darvish, hopefully he could come back. But, hey, whether they come back or not, if they don't come back, this team still got a damn good chance to do something damage in the playoffs, I think.
And all the positives we talked about, Preller's best job ever in acquisitions, and obviously what Schultz has done from a culture standpoint, the players, the roster. You talked hitting coach. John and I have talked about Ruben Niebla. I mean, you talk about an intangible MVP, what he's done with a huge group of those pitchers to dial them in to their strength and make them better. I think he's done a phenomenal job.
Well, I think Ruben's done a real good job. It's his third year, and I think he's done a really good job. The other thing, and people haven't, they'll talk more about it, about Victor Rodriguez, but Ruben Niebla and Victor Rodriguez worked in the same organization.
Yeah, they're in Cleveland.
They came from Cleveland. Okay. So I got to believe that when a job opened up and Victor Rodriguez was trying to get this job, I got to believe Ruben Niebla raised his hand and said, hey, man, this guy can really coach. Well, you know what? This guy's got hitters buying in. You know what? When you're a big league hitting coach, you're not going to necessarily change a whole lot with a guy. They're going to be fine-tuned. You're going to watch a guy hit for a period of time, and then you're going to make some suggestions maybe, or he may develop a relationship with you where he comes to you, and it's better that way because the players are more open-minded. But he's got this entire team buying in, and you got a good group of veterans like Solano and Peralta. They certainly can help the case. You got Machado, who's now swinging the bat well. Profar is a good team guy, is always trying to get a little bit better. So you've got some top-notch baseball IQ guys on this roster right now.
And I think that what Niebla has done by looking at video and just pinpointing what Cease was not doing very well early, what he's done to readjust Musgrove, what he did with the refugee relief ace who was in Mexico and Japan, and what they did with Robert Suarez, and then how he's helped these young guys. Merrill, prime example. I mean, I think Niebla, from a pitching perspective, has just really done a lot of things.
We could do a whole segment on Padre pitching and breaking down the thing about Morejon. He's finally healthy.
Yeah.
Okay. That's been a big problem. And Robert Suarez was never healthy last year. You go back, to his first year, 3 years ago, he was very healthy and pitched very, very well. Last year, he was never healthy. And this year he's been absolutely fantastic.
Yep. Next question, John Riley. Fans Forum. Hope you're enjoying this because we're kind of melting down John's computer here.
It's all good. There's lots of love. So here's a comment here from Neil, and he says, Coach and Saw, all is right in the world again. Emmanuel asks, Lee, do you think Ohtani would be able to accomplish a 50 home run, 50 stolen base season?
I think it's a viable goal to get to because we still got another month plus a week to accomplish that. And as long as he does not get hurt and he's only DHing every day, he's not out in the field pounding. I think 50-50 is reasonable. And I flip back because I talk to agents all the time. And I just asked them their perspective of this player or that player. And what they told me universally, and the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. You think about what Ohtani accomplished with the Angels, DHing 6 days a week and going through all the physicality of being a DH, all the video he had to study of the upcoming pitchers he'd have to face, and then the preparation added on when he was going to throw on that seventh day and Sunday, and then what he'd do in the bullpen sessions. That's a phenomenal workload. I mean, Ohtani to me this might be a once-in-a-lifetime player we'll never see somebody take on. I mean, they can say about Babe Ruth, but that was a whole different aura and era. This is a much more demanding aura and era that Ohtani's accomplishing greatness.
Well, we talked about Ohtani earlier, Lee. Pretty amazing guy. This may be his best year to go 50-50. And the reason I say that, being a stolen base guy, it takes a toll on your body. Now, the thing that I like about Ohtani is that he goes feet first. and he knows how to slide properly. He's not going head first. He's not putting his fingers and hands and neck and face exposed and going into the head first. I don't know why guys dive head first, to be honest with you. Going back into the bag's one thing, but going full speed head first, you're an IL move waiting to happen, in my opinion. But I think as the Dodgers wind down this season, unless he really wants to get a personal record and try to, he's close to 50 homers and 50 stolen bases, I would think he would start backing off on stealing bases, because at some point in time, you're going to twist an ankle. You could be out a week. Do they really want that getting closer to the playoffs? I don't know. But the factor, and I don't want, they talked about this with Acuna Jr. You got that new rule where you can only go over there twice. That's obviously played a part in why the run game has come back. And I don't want to diminish Acuna or Ohtani, but it wasn't the same for, Ricky Henderson or Lou Brock or Maury Wills in the day. It's a different game now. So some of these numbers are, I don't want to say watered down, but they are a little bit skewed, I think.
Okay. We move on. Fans Forum continues. You got questions? Man, do we have a few people here? We just might be here till Tuesday night.
Yeah, we'll be here for a while. Callan asks, he goes, if time allows, I'd love to hear some stories that Lee and Coach can share from their time at 690. I was too young to remember 690, but loved each of your time on 1090 and 97.3.
Okay, well, I would like to save the real juicy stories when we do the whole segment. All I'll say is we worked for a very unique owner, John Lynch. John Lynch Sr. He is the father of the legendary NFL safety Hall of Famer, John Lynch Jr., who's now the general manager of the 49ers. I was the first hire. I was in Phoenix doing Arizona State Sun Devil football. I pioneered sports talk radio at KTAR, and they called me and asked me to come to San Diego as the first increment. And the hook was, you'll be the lead talk show host, an afternoon drive, and you're going to be the voice of the Chargers. And I said, okay. Well, we worked for a guy that was a visionary, and he had this idea of sports talk radio, even though he didn't have any baseball play-by-play, and usually baseball play-by-play is the foundation for a sports talk station. Well, he tried, but he had this vision, and he put it together, and I laugh now because I have great respect for what he did, the risks he took financially. It's a very expensive format to run, but I also laugh the all-star lineup they put together wasn't by any damn blueprint. They just kind of stumbled into it. They stumbled into him as a high school guru. And maybe John wasn't polished on radio, but John was damn good. And they stumbled into Jim Rome. They didn't know what he could become. And they stumbled into the mixed bag of Hartman and Chet Forty, or Hartman and Philly Billy. And it just kind of came together. But John Lynch was a visionary, and he's had a longer relationship with John Lynch Sr. than I have. And I got great regard for the man, what he did.
Was your first day officially at August 1st, 1987?
It was.
Well, I was working there prior to you, but I wasn't necessarily on the payroll. My actual first start date, even though I'd been there since like March, my first day full time, August 1st, 1987. So you and I actually officially started on the same day, even though I was there a few months earlier.
We walked in the door, and at that time, it was 69 extra gold.
That's right.
It was rock and roll Wolfman Jack radio. And I felt, holy cow, did I make a mistake doing this?
Bloomin' Harrigan in the morning.
It was 69 extra gold, rock and roll from American Graffiti days. And we were the only two guys outside of the owner who was a sports fan. And we were like, in a closet by ourselves, and nobody wanted us around and didn't want to work with us, because they knew as this thing took off that the rock and roll format was eventually going to go away. But I'll tell you what, I had a great time with Wolfman Jack. He was my lead-in.
Yep.
His name was Jack Smith. And Wolfman had an entourage like you wouldn't freaking believe. And they brought all this food in every afternoon. And he was doing American Graffiti from the movie, that music, those people. It was really different.
Well, that's when he came to the station, but a lot of times he did the show from his home
in Los Angeles.
But we would have to call him to make sure he was up, ready to do the show, because he slept in until early afternoon.
So it was unique. But we'll save the rest of the really juicy stories, because there's some real cool stuff that we'll tell you about. John Riley, next topic.
Okay, we got some more love here. This is from Frank. He says, great to see Hacksaw Coach still bringing it. Ismail says, I really miss you guys being on the radio. And says further, sorry, I took you guys for granted. These new sports talk radio shows are horrible.
Well, at the time we were doing sports talk radio, all we were doing was grinding every day, covering press conferences, talking about the teams in town, the topics on the table, as I would describe it. We had no knowledge that we were building greatness. I don't think we ever realized it. And then as the years became decades, and then when we both got bought out and we went off into other things, and me doing this, which stunned me was a number of people nationwide, Coach, that would come to me, and I email and I talk to people in radio all over the country. And a lot of them become friends. And the common theme was, how the hell did you guys ever put this formula together? And I said, it's probably by accident. But we just accumulated this talent, and we all came at it from different angles. And next thing you know, we have a very successful station, which made the ending so bloody hard and created so much bitterness when corporate radio kind of took us all out because it was so expensive to run and their profit margins weren't as big as they wanted it to be, and ruined the bloody format. But we were working so hard, I don't think we realized the iconic thing that we were formulating.
Well, Lee, I think more than anything else, and I can speak for myself, and I think I can speak for you, and I can speak for a lot of the guys that we worked with. I mean, when the mic went on, we talked. When the mic went off, we kept working. Okay?
We kept talking.
Well, we kept talking, but what I mean by that, I mean, if I was doing a night show, I would wake up in the morning after, getting home at midnight, and I'd get right to work, and I'd try to get a little breather, maybe early afternoon, because I was coming in and following you normally, 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock, depending if you're going 4 to 8 or 3 to 7 in those days. And I mean, it was just like one day after another. We spent 7-8 hours. Early in our career, Lee, we didn't have the internet. We had to make a lot of phone calls.
It's all networking.
We had to get into the ballpark, going to batting practice before a talk show at night, going to a game on Saturday when you're not working, trying to build relationships. It was more than just sitting there popping off for 3 or 4 hours and not having any accountability. And I think one of the things that, when we do what we do, we're going to irritate some people in the organizations from time to time. You probably more than me.
Oh,
I know Dean Spanos is on your Christmas card list, but at the end of the day, if you're going to say something on the air, you got to be at batting practice and be there. If somebody wants to come up and talk to you about what you had to say, nowadays, a lot of these guys that are on sports talk radio, they pop off. They know very little, number one, but number two, they don't go down. They have no relationships whatsoever.
Concur wholeheartedly. The industry has changed, but thank you for the compliment. And when we do this history of sports talk radio, you'll hear stuff you probably never, ever heard. We might even get in trouble doing it that way. John Riley, next topic.
Okay, well, just a quick shout out here. Bonjour de Canada from Revolution. But let's go here. Like David says, I love John Kentera and Bill Warndell.
Just like Hacksaw, I can tell that right now. Go ahead.
Okay, and then Gary says, one good thing about the Chargers is that there's no way that many people in the stands to see them fail. Theme game at SoFi. Sit anywhere you want day.
Plenty of good tickets available.
Yeah, I don't see myself going to SoFi Stadium anytime any soon to watch the Chargers.
No, it's much more convenient to sit at home and root for Justin Herbert. And I'm sorry, I'm not giving Dean Spanos $1 of my hard-earned money after what he did to our community.
I look at it this way, Lee. I was born and raised a Charger fan. It was the only AFL team. I followed the AFL as a kid. Keith Lincoln, Lance Allward, John Hadel, and those guys. Now when I watch them play, I hope they go 0-17.
Well said. Glad you don't hold any grudges.
No grudges here.
I'll sign that memo.
Okay, let's move on. Josh says, love listening to both of you while I lived in SoCal from 1996 to 2005. Still listening to you in Michigan.
Josh, hail to the victors. Do you think you'll like NCAA probation post Harbaugh? That's going to be messy. We haven't heard the end of that story, I guarantee you.
Obviously, he likes what's going on in San Diego sports-wise rather than Michigan. He probably had to go there. Maybe married a lady from Ann Arbor.
How's those winters in Michigan? Hey, Josh, thanks for joining us. Next question.
Okay, Casey has one here asking about USC. He goes, how do you guys think USC will do in their move to the Big Ten Conference, and where do you think they finish in the Big Ten?
I like Lincoln Riley, smart, bright light guy, knows recruits, got a ton of guys in the transfer portal. Yeah, There is no Caleb Williams, but they've got a load of offensive linemen. They are deep with transfers. They got one great wide receiver, and they've got one of the best defensive tackles in the country that nobody pays attention to, in Bear Alexander. I think USC is going to do well. I think it's going to be a horrid season for Deshaun Foster. I think the post-Chip Kelly era is going to be a disaster at UCLA. And, way early in this podcast, we talked about the death of the Pac-12. I keep hearing an undercurrent, a theme, that Cal and Stanford of the opinion that maybe we shouldn't have done this going to the ACC. I think UCLA is going to regret this. I bet UCLA may try to opt out within a couple of years because I think this is going to be horrid. So what you've got, Coach Kentera, is you get Stanford, Cal, UCLA come back. You got Oregon State, Washington State. That gives you 5. That conference has to get to 8 by 2026. So you take San Diego State, maybe you take Boise State. When the TV contracts expire in the Mountain West, there's no exit fee once that happens. So the Aztecs, Boise State, maybe Fresno, maybe Vegas, they become free agent schools. So if you got 5 in place in the rebuilt pack, and then you take the Mountain West, you can get to 8, maybe get to 9, maybe even get to 10. I think that's what's going to happen. My private concern is that the Aztecs and the Run-On Rebels, Fresno State, not so much Boise, I don't know that they would have the pot of gold to raise for NIL money to compete at that Pac-12 or Pac-8 or Pac-10 level. That's the only thing that really worries me.
Well, I don't think a lot of schools are going to be able to do that, Lee. I mean, I see college football down the road, unless they get this NIL under control and transfer portal under control. I could see a lot of football programs dropping in the next 5 years. The Texas El Pasos, the New Mexicos, the New Mexico States of that ilk. I could see them just dropping out. And then you're going to have like the top, 60 teams. You're going to have 60 Division I college football programs. As far as UCLA, I definitely see UCLA coming back. I think this is going to be a disaster for them football-wise. I don't think they're ready to compete. I think Chip Kelly let that thing fall so bad, and he got out when the getting's good.
He was told to get out.
Yeah, but I mean, at the end of the day, you're a head coach, okay? Why would you want to go become an offensive coordinator? I know it's at Ohio State, but I mean, you're a head coach. And maybe they'll win a national title. He'll get another head coaching job. But, I think his days as a head coach are come and gone. He did a very, very poor job at UCLA.
And he was given all the resources to do it.
He doesn't deserve another opportunity to be a head coach. As far as SC can do whatever they want because they're a private school. But I think behind the scenes, there's probably a certain portion of the people at SC not real happy about this. I mean, you changed the history of college football.
I concur with you. And privately, I hate to say this, but I'll say it. I hope they get their butts kicked in the Big Ten because they deserve it for what they did to something that was real special to you, your father, his father, the generations of the greatness of the Pac-8 that became the Pac-10, that became the Pac-12. That goes back to 1915. And SC and UCLA pulled the underpinnings of the conference out by taking a money grab to go east. If they all got their brains blown out, that'd be okay by me. I hope they come back. I don't think they're all going to come back, but I think you and I are on the same page, and a bunch of them say, oh, this is not good. This is not going to work. We're going to wind up coming back. John Merley.
Keep going here. And Blake says, great to see and hear you guys. I miss the mighty 690 days in programs. Michael says, Coach, do you envision yourself going back to the radio anytime soon, or are you even interested in going back to that platform?
Well, you always pick up the phone if somebody calls you, but nobody's calling. And the way sports talk radio is going, not only locally, but nationally, those opportunities are few and far between. I'm not leaving San Diego. If one of the stations called, you're always going to listen, but I'm enjoying my life a great deal. I'm doing my own little podcast and hanging out with you and Saw. Life is good. And if I go back to work, great. If not, maybe I'll find something else in the sports industry.
It's different. I didn't leave it bitter. All my friends who are out, and I think Coach Kentera would agree with me, there's a lot of really good broadcasters who are not working in radio. Just in San Diego County alone, there's a lot of guys that left it kind of bitter. I didn't leave bitter. I left kind of disappointed. They took care of me financially. That's okay. The world changed, and now we're doing this. And this is the most amazing thing, that I'm doing this modern day technology, and I still have my Royal manual typewriter in my garage, Coach. So it's just a different time and place. My only disappointment is corporate radio came in, ruined local radio, and ruined a lot of careers. And I just can't forgive the upper management people that did that, not just to me and you, but did it to all of our friends.
Yeah, I mean, the last stop I had, normally when you're number one in the market and you're the lowest paid guy on the totem pole, usually you're up for the employee of the year. Instead, I got a pink slip. And to this day, I have no idea why I got fired. It certainly didn't have anything to do with my ratings, because they were top notch. And it certainly didn't have anything to do with me making too much money.
Yeah, concur with you. You got a pink slip. I got a brown envelope. Sign here. Make sure your office is cleared out within 2 days. Although I never parted badly with anybody who let me go. In fact, I'm still friends with the general managers that gave me the brown envelope to sign. But that being said, you made a mistake. You took talent off the air that shouldn't have been off the air. Same thing with him. But that's one man's opinion. John Riley.
All these street free agents. Okay, here's a three-parter here talking a little bit about soccer. We'll go to Neil first. And he says, how do you think the required Apple TV subscription to watch games will affect the San Diego FC fan base growth once they start? Jason says, soccer talk. San Diego is not and never will be a soccer town. We are football and baseball town. Also, I can't fathom any other team than the Chargers being our football team at San Diego. No, thank you.
Okay, I'll just give you a quick response. We have enormous soccer following TV ratings.
Yep.
Whether that's Team USA or whether that's the creme de la creme, the World Cup. Phenomenal. If we had Major League Soccer and it was successful, and if you had sports talk radio that was willing to learn about soccer and actually do unique things as it relates to soccer, if I were king and I was doing my show, I'd cover everything, but I would also cover soccer a bit more extensively if we had MLS here or World Cup coming here or things of that nature. I think it can succeed if there is on-air media support. The subscription thing, the whole bloody world has gone to subscription, which kind of really bothers me. But I think it can be a success here if the product on the field is good, and if we have the right media helping cover it and telling the stories that need to be told.
Well, I think initially they're going to get a lot of love. Okay, I think the new MLS franchise, they're going to get a lot of love, but they better win. And, I think everybody will be a novelty to go out there as a media guy the first few times, but how many times is the media going to come back? It's kind of like going to a San Diego State football game. I go to those games, and aside from the people working, I never see anybody. I don't see TV guys. I don't see radio guys on Saturday night. I'm not even.
You're sitting next to me.
Yeah, I'm sitting next to you.
We're both free agents.
And the only other guys that are there are guys that have to be there because they're working. But, we care about what's going on in San Diego. We want to know. I think as far as subscriptions, I mean, I'm not going to. If they're on TV, I'm going to watch them. Okay. I'm not going to go out of my way to buy another subscription. I pay enough in cable TV to watch all the sports stations that I do. But I'm excited. I like soccer. I could sit here as a 6-year-old kid back in 1976. I went and saw Pelé play at Balboa Stadium. And when they helicoptered him to the middle of the field and played against the San Diego Jaws. But, soccer's a great sport. And like you said, for whether it's the men, the women, national teams, the Premier Soccer League, the ratings in San Diego are always way up there.
Yeah. World Cup. I love the World Cup. And I got exposed to it decades ago. And I saw Pele in 1972. The Meadowlands, New York Giants, New York Cosmos.
Yep.
72,000 fans. Couldn't believe it. And I didn't know anything about soccer. All I knew was how great he was. And I stood down on the sidelines with the other media and just watched the magic of what he was. That's how I kind of got exposed to World Cup. And I just love the World Cup. And my co-host and I are the only two dumbasses that get up at 4:30 on Saturday morning to watch the English Premier League. And we are big EPL guys.
Big time. Yeah, I got the Apple TV subscription, so I'm going to definitely be watching.
John subscribes to everything.
Yeah, my wife and I were always like streaming stuff. Okay, Chris says, Michael Jordan and Wayne Gretzky of sports information sitting 3 feet apart. Then Al says, Dodgers are in trouble come playoffs.
Well, thank you for the compliment. We just approach sports talk radio really, really different. You might call us dinosaurs. I might call us old school and experienced, and Dodgers could be in trouble. I mean, they got a month to get all this pitching staff healthy because I don't know who you can trust.
Well, I agree. I mean, in the playoffs, anything can happen. That's why I think the Padres got a really good shot. Dodgers on paper, they're supposed to win it. They got the best record in the National League, even though they've had all their injuries. But playoffs are completely different. And thank you for the nice compliment regarding Michael Jordan and Wayne Gretzky. And I know we're going to do a show down the road about 690, but I got to mention one thing about Wayne Gretzky because we carried the Kings, Lee, as you well know.
In the Stanley Cup run. And then we carried the Ducks in the Stanley Cup
I'll never
run.
forget, I was at home and Joe Tatino called me. He goes, "You've got to get to the station in the next hour." He goes, "We've talked to the Kings and they're going to be trading Wayne Gretzky." He goes, "And you're going to go on and you're going to take phone calls about it." And I remember gobbling down my dinner, getting on the 5 freeway, getting off there at Pacific Highway, just with my little briefcase and running in, and took about 3 hours of phone calls about Wayne Gretzky getting traded to the St. Louis Blues.
Yeah. And I recall, because I covered hockey, I did a lot of hockey on my talk show because of the big signal that 690 had. And then because of all the content I did, hockey, we wound up with the LA Kings who were bouncing all over the radio dial. And one of my biggest thrills is the Gretzky era. When they went to the Stanley Cup Finals, I went on the road and I did my sports talk show. I told John Riley this. I thought I had died and gone to heaven. I did my sports talk show sitting in the gondola at center ice overlooking old Maple Leaf Gardens. And then at the Montreal Forum, the historic home of the Bleu Blanc Rouge, when the Kings played the Canadiens in the NHL Finals. So, I mean, I cut my teeth. That's where I started my broadcasting career, was doing pro hockey, minor league hockey, and got me to Cleveland and Major League Hockey and all that. So, but the Gretzky era, that made them, and it made us as a station in the LA Orange County market. And then when the Kings left us, we got the Ducks. Paul Correa came, and where'd that wind up? Stanley Cup playoffs again. So it helped grow our signal and our content in those two markets. In addition to everything we were doing, Charger, Padre, Aztec related.
Lee, let's face it. Hockey players were the best dudes to interview. I mean, I remember having Luke Robitaille on, Rob Blake. You mentioned Paul Correa, Timo Solani. We used to have those guys on a regular basis, and they were all great, man. I loved interviewing those hockey guys.
Okay, moving on. We got some more comments. Oh, this is another 690 question for you all. And this is from David. He says, talk about a Bill Warndell story at 690 or 1090.
Oh, gee, I'd like to hand that off and wait till we actually do the sports talk radio show. But Philly Billy came to San Diego after we had lost Chet 40. Chet had been paired with Steve Hartman. John Lynch, our owner at that time, knew of Chet 40, brought him in. I knew of Chet 40 and all the great things he had done on television as a producer for Monday Night Football. And I knew about his demise because of a gambling addiction. And I didn't know that it was going to work because I wasn't prejudging him. All I know is that he had a lot of problems. And he came in and he was so cool to be around and the stories he could tell. And we incorporated him 1 year as like the third man in the booth on our Charger broadcast. And we would go on the road and we would sit in the hotel lobby or at the dining room table in a corner by ourselves. And the team had had their big dinner. We were allowed to take part in it. And we sat in a corner and we'd sit there for hours and listen to Chet tell stories about where he had been and what he had done as a producer. And that included not only the greatest sporting events, not only including working with Howard Cosell, it included the crowning of the Queen of England, where they televised it for ABC. He did so many cool things. And then he obviously dropped dead of a heart attack. And they called me at 5 o'clock in the morning and said, Chet's passed away. Can you be the point man and make some contacts with the media and just give them some side stories? Because I had known him better. And the only one better would have been Steve Hartman. So I did that. And then we said, how do you replace Chet 40? And I said, Philly Billy Warndell, a guy I had been using as an NFL draft expert, and he had worked freelance for Our Lads Draft Guide. I said, he's got a lot of the same ingredients as Chet. And Hartman had established his own persona, which was really cool. And he was an LA guy and he drew from LA. And it worked for 40 because you had loudmouth East Coast guy, older, versus young punk West Coast guy and Hartman. I said, we need another loudmouth East Coast guy. And Philly Billy was right there. And I told John Lynch, I said, you need to call this guy in Philly. I use him once a week in the NFL. He knows everybody everywhere. And he's got this bad accent. You can't understand him without a Philly cheesesteak sandwich in your hand. And so they hired Philly Billy. And Philly came in and he just kind of hit the floor running just like Chet. To To me, it was a great success, and it was kind of by accident, but it was also by contact.
Well, I think I'm going to save a lot of my stories. I spent a lot of time with Chet and with Steve. I used to go pick Chet up at his house, and we'd go to high school basketball games because his daughter, Jacqueline, went to high school with my oldest daughter, Brooke. And so we spent a lot of time away from the station. And, I'll share some of those stories. And I certainly got, like you do, we got a lot to share when it comes to Philly Billy, because he's still on the radio back in Philadelphia. You and I are frequent guests of his, and we stay in touch with him, but he definitely is one of a kind.
Yeah, very much so. And there were a lot of one of a kind guys
that
were part of that roster of 690, and to a degree, the early days of 1090. John Riley, you got a couple social media ones you want to throw here at us?
Yeah, let's take a look here. There's just one quick one here from Swellin' Sausage. He said, Hacksaw, how you doing? Been listening to you since XTRA. From Southern California Sports Radio, the mighty 690. Before I listened to Jim Healy, he was awesome. And yeah, the Loose Cannons were badass. So
yeah, they were. And the thing, John and I have talked off the air, the thing that has made the legacy of 690, we were the first ones through the wall. We were the first ones to do it. Because everybody else, what was here in San Diego was just mom and pop post-game Padres talk. Dave Campbell, who I really liked, he did post-game Padre talk on what was then 760. And LA was post-game Dodger talk and was very successful. But nobody had done what we had done. I mean, on the air from 6 a.m. till 10 p.m.
Right.
Or midnight in some cases, live local sports talk. And so I go back to the original owner, John Lynch, visionary. You want talent, you want content, you need play-by-play, and pal, you need a big signal. And when I came up with the concoction, when I was driving from Phoenix to move over here, my car was packed full and everything I owned. I said, how am I going to do this? And I came up with the idea from Baja to the Canadian Rockies. And that was not BS, because he was with me. We were doing Aztec football or USC. You could hear us in Vancouver at night. You could hear us in Spokane, Washington at night. You could listen. I could listen to him do sports talk radio at night. And then, because the signal was so powerful, it skipped. And I told John Riley this. I got a cassette of a guy in Lapland, which is northern Finland, who taped a Charger-Rams preseason game. And through all the crackle and static, you could hear me doing live drop-ins for Southwest Airlines during the Charger broadcast. So it was Baja to the Canadian Rockies and beyond.
Well, and the other thing, we didn't have the rules, regular FCC, because, it was a Mexican-owned station, so they didn't have to turn their signal down at night. And, of course, I worked a lot of nights, Lee, and I remember several times getting phone calls from the Pacific Northwest way up there. I remember Rich Burke, who played junior college baseball for me. He most recently was on the Pac-12 network as a broadcaster. He called me one night when he was coming out from doing an Oregon State game up in Corvallis, because he turned on 690 up in Corvallis, Oregon, and it came through. So he gave his old coach a call. It's pretty cool.
And we'll save the story about the guy who called from prison, who was allowed to make one call a week, didn't call home, didn't call his lawyer. He called our damn station to talk to the coach. That'll be another topic for another day. Social media, sound off here, John.
Okay, let's get some social media. There's a good Raiders one in here. You guys always like talking Raiders. Where is it? Here it is. This is from Dave. He says, it's going to get ugly real quick. And I like that they're staying consistent for once, but not having Jacobs and no quarterback is going to get real ugly if they don't start producing W's. Adams might want to come out at the trading deadline.
He's calling from the Raiders Nation. End of the day, they need another Tom Telesco draft. They think, I love their skill people. Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, the two young tight ends. I don't know what they have at running back. They keep thinking that this kid from Georgia, Zamir White, is going to replace Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs, that's heavy-duty production. Minshew, gunslinger. He can throw touchdowns. He does throw picks, takes way too many sacks, and fumbles the football a lot. Defensively, they're much improved up front. So you got Mad Max, you got Christian Wilkins. They've got Mal Kuntz. I love their linebacking. They think they're better athletically in the secondary, but I think they need another Tom Telesco draft. So for the Raider Nation perspective, what the hell? You don't care. You're going to be drunk. You're not going to pay attention to the game. Just come to the stadium. I think they'll be better They just got to rein the mistakes and the turnovers, because that's what Minshew does, is make plays and make mistakes along the way. And the coach says,
I think they finish in the cellar of the AFC West. I think Kansas City, obviously the class. I think Denver is going to be even better than the Chargers. I think Chargers finish third, and I think the Raiders finish fourth.
I think the Chargers need another draft, another Ortiz draft, because they still got questions to be answered. But Raider Nation, just remember, I didn't say that. He picked you to finish in last place. John Riley, next social media sound off.
Okay, let's go to the Rams comments here. This is from the People America. It says, legit concerns. McVay has an understanding of offense that could avoid the concerns of the line with a quarterback like Stafford to go 500 a few games, but a whole season is likely a disaster in the NFL. Would love to discuss sometimes. Great questions.
I think the huge question with the Rams is they've lost 3 offensive linemen in preseason. They've not had major injuries 2 years in a row. They got 3 of their 5 offensive guys out. One of them has now just been suspended by the league. At this late date, you can't go find offensive linemen. That's an issue. Puka Nacua has not played in preseason. Knee injury. And, of course, everybody has sealed their lips, won't talk about the extent of the injury. And the tight end, Tyler Higbee, is probably going to start on PUP, if not injured reserve. So they're down in a whole bunch of guys around Matthew Stafford. And by the way, we'll find out what life is going to be like post Aaron Donald. So I'm not going to project that they're going to have a garbage season, because I did that 2 years ago, and McVay coached all those kids together. But they went 2 straight years with hardly any big injuries, and this preseason has been just riddled with all kinds of problems.
Well, Lee, let's take a look at their division. They're the second best team in the division, aren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, the 49ers are the class probably of the NFC this year.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I know they're dealing with the Ayuk situation, the Trent Williams situation, but they got a lot of talent there. I think the Rams are number 2, and then you got Arizona and you got Seattle. I don't expect much out of Arizona or Seattle. I mean, the Rams there could be 4 wins right there between those 2 teams.
Yeah. But you're asking Stafford to be able to hang in there with virtually an entire group of offensive linemen pass protecting him who are
yeah, but Sean McVay, you know what? Sean McVay is a good football coach. He's going to come up with a protection. Hey, when you're an offensive coach as good as he is, you have an offense for a team that can block, that can kind of block and can't block at all. Believe me, he will come up with something.
Okay, and there may be trades between now and opening day, which is 10 days away. There were, I think, 3 trades today in the NFL. So there might be some deals for rental free agent linemen, but this lineman situation in front of Stafford really concerns me a great deal. John Riley, next social media sound off.
Okay, let's talk about some of the new pitching rules that were proposed. And this is from Jim. He says, I'm old school and I don't like any of the rule changes. And I mean, let the freaking pitcher hit, pick off move as many times as you like. Can the pitch timer be related to the number of arm injuries?
Well, those are all valid questions. Old school. So you got a manual typewriter in your garage too, don't you, Jim Daddy? End of the day, I like the pace of play rules. I think it's really helped the game. I don't know that making a guy throw every 18 seconds is the reason of all these elbow injuries and surgeries. I think it's more what they're doing with their pitches, and he can comment about the grip of the ball and the physical force on the elbow, what these guys are now doing in making pitches. It's not the Greg Maddux, Tom Glavine, John Smoltz type of pitching. I like the rule changes. I think both leagues need to be the same. I was happy the DH is there. I don't like this quote idea of everybody's got to go 6 innings. And there's a bunch of asterisks there. If you throw more than 100 pitches, you can be pulled before 6 innings. There's too much physical risk to impose that. But I think overall, the rules have been made to improve the game itself. I don't have much of a beef with that, but the 6-inning thing, I think, that's messing with health, and I don't think we can go there. Coach?
I have no problem with the pitch clock because everything got way slowed down. Yep. I mean, you don't need to be there at a ballpark till 10:15, 10:30 at night on a 7:10 start, okay? Now they're starting at 6:40. Fans can come out, they can take their kids and get home in a decent hour. I have no problem with that. As far as going over to first base only twice, got a problem with that, changing the game. As far as 6 innings, and unless you throw 100 pitches, that's garbage. Let the manager run his own ball club, okay? I'm tired of guys like Rob Manfred and all these people in baseball that sit around a table and they come up with new ideas all the time. Let the guys on the field dictate how the game is played. It's been a great game for 150 years, and the more they tinker with it, the more it's screwing the game up. I mean, I had no problem, number one, with the shift, but I'm glad the shift isn't in the game now. But really, it came down to a lot of pitchers or hitters, I should say, couldn't make an adjustment. But as far as pitching and injuries, Lee, I mean, that we could talk until the cows come home on that. From the simple standpoint, everybody's got to throw max velocity now. They don't add, they don't subtract. Guys, mechanics, especially guys out of the bullpen, they're throwing 100 miles. They're just trying to throw as hard as they possibly can. When they break down, they just bring in another guy that throws 100 miles an hour. I think, you got to have good, 3 good quality pitchers to be a winner in the big leagues. You got guys throwing 5, 6, 7 different types of pitchers. I think that plays into it. But I think more than anything else, guys trying to throw as hard as they can every time they throw a fastball. Not good, and your body isn't made to throw a baseball. It's made to throw a softball, to be honest with you.
And I kept track since the end of February when spring training opened, 53 Tommy John surgeries, either major league pitchers or hot prospects. 53.
Yeah.
That's 14 to 18 months
I'm not
gone.
surprised, Lee. The mechanics are awful, and they train these guys poorly in the minor leagues. They train guys to be tired when they get to about 65, 70 pitches, or if they go 5 innings, they're mentally supposed to be tired. I mean, let guys go out there. The more you throw, the more you're going to build things up, but you can't throw max velocity all the time. You got to add and subtract, and movement's more important than velocity. Any big league hitter with his saw can hit a fastball.
But the movement is causing the arm breakdowns because the stuff is so wicked and got such bite and jump, but that causes stress here and here.
Yeah, just take a little bit off and sink that ball a little bit better. You don't have to throw 95 miles an hour to get a good sinker.
Take notes. There'll be an exam on this at the end of this podcast. Go ahead. Let's do one more social media.
Okay, let's get a Charger comment here. And this is from Conrad. He goes, this team won't even make the playoffs because they have no weapons. Maybe in a year or two, Harbaugh will turn it around.
Well, I'm not sure that I buy that because I think Justin Herbert can make everybody around him better. And they could not keep all those wide receivers and all those linebackers because of the salary cap. I like Josh Palmer. I've seen a little bit different in Quentin Johnston this year, but he's still got to prove it come opening day that he's not going to drop passes. But his route running's become much more precise, crisp. His athletic ability is still off the charts. He's just got to be more consistent. And then we'll see what happens beyond those guys, and they're going to throw to the tight ends, and they will dump and run a lot to J.K. Dobbins. But I think Herbert makes everybody around him better because Herbert is so good and so precise. Have to keep him upright. I mean, he's had 3 major injuries now, all kind of on fluke things, but he got hurt. He's got to stay in the lineup. But I think Herbert is really the keystone of everything else that's going to happen.
I'll tell you, Justin Herbert is, I don't want to say he surprised me, but I guess I'd have to use that adjective more than anything else. I thought he was going to be a pretty good quarterback coming out of Oregon. I didn't think he'd be as good as he really is. And I think this year is going to be interesting because he doesn't have a couple of his weapons that he's had. I mean, losing Keenan Allen was huge. Mike Williams, when he was in there, was productive, but he was another guy that was injury prone. It's going to be a growing year. Like I said, I think they come in 3rd in the division. I think they miss the playoffs this year, but I do think there are going to be some encouraging signs.
This has been fun. I told you this would be fun, John Riley. This has been great, I think, for everybody on our live stream. If you like what we're doing, want you to subscribe, want you to share, tell everybody what we do Mondays at 1, Thursdays at 1 on the West Coast. Read my website. I write on it every day of the week. Want you also to join Hacksaw's Insiders Group. As promised, we will do this again. And the next time we're going to do it, we're going to talk about the history of sports talk radio, which will be fun, probably followed by a lawsuit or 2 once we get to the finish line. Hey, great to have you guys here.
Hey, Lee, thanks for having me. And when we do that show regarding 690, there'll be no holes barred.
And we hope you have enjoyed it. This podcast is brought to you by Dixie Line Lumber and Home Centers, 9 stores to serve you in San Diego. You've got projects, they've got materials, you want ideas. These are the consultants to work with Dixie Line Lumber. We'll be back in here on Thursday, getting ready for the start of the NFL and the college football season. John Riley, thanks for driving this bus and not putting it into the barriers. We'll see you come Thursday.
Come Thursday. Here we go.
And thank you for joining us on Hacksaw's Headlines.
Join us again for Hacksaw's Headlines on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And find the audio version on your favorite podcast apps.
Touchdown, San Diego!
For more content, go to LeeHacksawHamilton.com.